Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're feeling the absolute chaos of modern marketing right now, where everything was supposedly due yesterday and your budget is somehow negative, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're going to tackle that very real overwhelm by diving deep into the newly released 2025 State of Agile Marketing Report. We're looking at the data on what the most successful teams are doing differently, and more importantly, how they're using the Scrum framework to hit full agility. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump right in.
Let's kick things off with a stat that'll hit you right between the eyes. Out of 430 marketers surveyed for 2025, guess how many non-Agile teams reported a full AI implementation? Exactly 0. Yep, 0. If you aren't using an Agile framework right now, the data is telling us you're totally missing the boat on the biggest tech shift of our time.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The 2025 marketing squeeze, 2. The fully Agile advantage, 3. Unlocking AI with agility, 4. Adapting Scrum for marketing, and 5. Essential marketing Scrum ceremonies.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the 2025 marketing squeeze.
Listen, if your job has gotten ridiculously hard lately, you are definitely not alone. Stakeholders are just squeezing marketing teams from every angle. You're expected to do way more with less budget, navigate a really tough market, and somehow dramatically improve the customer experience. Oh, and on top of all that, leadership keeps piling on the pressure to adopt AI, but without giving you any real framework for how to actually do it. The result? Total burnout. Teams are desperately trying to balance massive output demands, and traditional management styles are just completely falling apart. Which brings us to Section 2, the fully Agile advantage.
Now, here is the plot twist. There is a massive night and day difference between being somewhat agile and fully agile. It's huge. Compared to their partially agile peers, fully agile teams are an incredible 6 times more likely to be much less stressed out. They're 3 times more likely to report extreme marketing success and 3 times more likely to see significant productivity gains. They aren't just surviving this 2025 squeeze, they are absolutely crushing it. Going all in on agility is just a total game changer for both your output and, honestly, your sanity.
Moving right along to Section 3, Unlocking AI with Agility. So, this brings us to arguably the hottest topic of the year, making AI actually work, instead of just sitting in endless meetings talking about it. As you can see, fully agile teams are 3 times more likely to have fully implemented AI than somewhat agile teams. Full agility literally correlates with turning AI from a fun little experiment into a fully integrated powerhouse tool. Because agile teams prioritize autonomy, they focus on high-value stuff, and they aren't scared to experiment. That puts them in the perfect spot to ride this massive tech wave.
And honestly, this creates the ultimate feedback loop in the market today. 66% of fully agile teams say AI has actually enhanced their agility even more. So being agile makes it easier to adopt AI, and then that AI turns around and makes your team even more agile. It's this incredible compounding competitive advantage that just leaves non-agile teams completely stuck in the mud.
Okay, let's look at how to actually do this in Section 4, Adapting Scrum for Marketing.
Let's pivot for a second, from analyzing the data to the how-to. I know Scrum sounds like hardcore software jargon, but let's demystify it for marketers. At its core, Scrum is just an adapted agile framework that uses time-boxed sprints to give you a predictable rhythm. Marketing is notoriously interruption-driven, right? Ad hoc requests fly in from literally everywhere. Scrum gives you a structured way to streamline all that work, rebalance your priorities, and get way more efficient, without turning your department into a chaotic frenzy where everyone's just chugging coffee and hoping for the best.
But here's the real secret to making this work for marketing. You do not have to follow the software rules blindly. To adapt Scrum, you want to keep the powerful events, which we'll hit in a second, but you can and definitely should adjust those rigid software roles. Like a traditional product owner doesn't make a ton of sense if you aren't building an app. So shift that title to a marketing owner who handles stakeholder relationships. Tweak the roles to fit your department's vibe, but keep the core framework intact.
And that perfectly tees up Section 5, Essential Marketing Scrum Ceremonies.
To bake this into your day-to-day operations, there are 4 absolutely non-negotiable ceremonies you've got to set up: sprint planning, the daily scrum or stand-up, the sprint review, and the sprint retrospective. If you lock these 4 events in with real discipline, you are well on your way to that fully agile status we just looked at. Let's break them down one by one.
First up, sprint planning. You figure out a sprint length, usually 1 to 4 weeks. Then your team pulls from a prioritized backlog of work,
agrees on one single cohesive sprint goal, and commits to the workload. Now here is the absolute game changer, this final point. Once that sprint starts, you do not allow mid-sprint ad hoc additions. Zero. This team sanctity is exactly how you protect your marketers from that crazy squeeze we talked about earlier. If an executive bursts in with a super urgent idea, guess what? It goes straight into the backlog for the next sprint.
Next, we have the daily stand-up. This is a strict, cutthroat 15-minute sync where every single team member answers 3 rapid-fire questions. What did I do yesterday to hit the sprint goal? What will I do today? And what are my barriers? Think of this way more like a football huddle before a big play, rather than some tedious status update for your boss. It's a fast alignment to make sure the team is unblocked and moving forward together. Then, when the sprint wraps, you do a sprint review. Now, this is not a live editing session. It's basically sanctions showing off. The team presents completed, approved work to stakeholders. This transparency is just magical. It builds massive confidence with your internal stakeholders because they consistently see tangible results. And it gives everyone a chance to adapt to market shifts before you even plan the next sprint.
Before we hit the final ceremony, I want you to hear this quote from Scrum co-creator Jeff Sutherland. He says, "Whenever people are involved in a complex, creative effort, traditional management methods simply break apart." And wow, does that hit the nail on the head for marketing? It's highly complex, it's incredibly creative, and we constantly have to adapt, which is exactly why this next step is literally vital.
The final piece of the puzzle is the sprint retrospective, where the team looks inward at how they're working. But here's the catch. Just talking about improving isn't enough. Your retrospectives have to end with Kaizen. That means committing to a concrete, measurable action for process improvement in the very next sprint. Process felt clunky last week, you commit to a specific fix. This guarantees you're constantly growing and getting better, cycle after cycle.
So what's the real payoff for implementing all this structure? Sure, you get the awesome AI adoption and killer productivity, but honestly, the best part is that 66% of Agile marketers report lower stress levels, thanks to Agile ways of working. This methodology actively protects human well-being. By giving your people clarity, real autonomy, and a shield against endless interruptions, you are directly solving the burnout crisis in your department.
Which leaves us with this final thought to wrap up today's explainer. 2025 is bringing some wild innovation, intense market pressure, and super rapid change. But as the data clearly showed us today, we actually already have the tools to manage it. The fully agile teams have given us the exact blueprint. The only question left is, will you pick those tools up and use them? Thanks so much for hanging out with me to dig into this data, and I really hope you take these Scrum frameworks back to your teams this week.